Sarah Beeson, resident. I live in Hamilton Commons, longtime resident, not first time caller. So to go back to the original points before from the last round, because it still applies, yes, there are mixed use codes that are still applicable, even if it's not permanently that 75% high commercial level. However, all of the mixed use codes, when you take out standalone multifamily, still have a commercial component to it. And I realize that part of this is trying to redefine a lot of those definitions to try to sort out what is applicable. As I mentioned in my UDC comments, we need more housing stat. This is not something that placing a moratorium is going to be helpful with. Multifamily housing is in highest demand. Metro Atlanta, as I stated in previous comments, our highest returns per acre on property tax revenue are in multifamily units. And actually, to the previous point from Councilwoman Hall about the single family versus multifamily, when you do the math, and actually if you look at the comprehensive plan, there's a little map. You can see how the multifamily units as well as the mixed use units do subsidize the single family homes in terms of providing the services for the city through the tax revenue that they generate because it's so much higher per acre. And then because of this, I'm disappointed to see Mayor and Council put a halt to multifamily development on the basis of unsubstantiated claims. And I'm talking about the way that this resolution is worded. The language of the resolution calls for a moratorium on all new conditional multifamily housing development due to, quote, the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Like, what does that even mean? It literally impacts residents' health, safety, and welfare when people cannot afford to live in a city anymore. Again, I have a number of friends and acquaintances who are leaving Roswell because their rent increased as much as 33%. Previous studies, quote unquote, in this resolution indicate an undue strain on public services. Councilman Palermo and I actually had a one-on-one conversation about this recently where the same stat was cited. I asked where the study came from or where the stat came from. To Councilman Palermo's credit, he did say that it came from when he was running previously in 2019. His opponent used to cite that, but he was not aware of any study that came from the city. He wasn't sure which one. I just want to know, did council magically find a study in the last 3 weeks since we met? Did y'all commission a study that I didn't know about? Either way, there's nothing publicly available that backs these claims specifically here in Roswell. However, denser housing is easier to service based on economies of scale, and I do have a study by Pat Dugan from the Municipal Research and Services Center. It's not a multifamily, this is for municipalities. Quote, research and the literature is fairly clear that higher density development, such as multiple family uses, substantially reduce the cost of servicing each dwelling unit with capital facilities. Man, he just sat there and told you that it's actually cheaper to service per unit for multifamily. He also goes on to say that it's established that multifamily dwellings house fewer children than single-family homes, so the cost for school and single-family is higher. In that regard, furthermore, first responders, he goes on to state, he found in the call rate to first responders on a per capita basis in multifamily dwellings are roughly comparable to the population at large. You're just thinking it's that way because they're in a denser area. There's just more people, therefore they get more calls. If the city of Roswell has previous studies to share that would indicate otherwise, I'm all ears, would love to read them. However, the studies we do have, the 2018 and 2022 5-year consolidated plan identifies Roswell's high need for housing, including options for moderate and low-income residents, aging populations, workforce housing. And there's also wealth of knowledge in our 2040 comprehensive plan, which justifies keeping multifamily as is. And I want to emphasize for those listening, the way that we currently zone the code, Roswell is able to build multifamily only along Highway 9, Holcomb Bridge, and historic district corridors. To Mr. Long's point, I am all for the equality and balance of zoning from east to west. But either way, the way this change would be made, it's not going to raise the Country Club of South's clubhouse to put in an apartment complex. It allows us to infill what we need, which is housing in highly commercial areas, which is all along that entire thoroughfare. It's also where we're able to access with transit. Furthermore, I want to emphasize that, again, I did reach out to, to that point, I guess I'll get to that in a minute. Well, on that point, citywide building moratoriums, even just for this type of development, are typically a disaster. Anytime you halt development of any kind, you're going to create, essentially induce demand. The prices are going to escalate much faster. Moratoriums on housing with a restriction on our free market economy, as cases have gone all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, have proven a potential violation of the Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. What does that mean? It means local government is unduly limiting what a landowner can do with their land, and I caution if council makes changes to UDC, presumably adjusting or removing zoning classifications would have the same impact. That's why when I contacted City of Alpharetta about their changes, this was their exact quote. They didn't think many other cities would make the change that they did out of fear of a lawsuit. That should be a red flag for you guys. And yes, I did ask a zoning attorney if the city can be sued for these changes. In turn, the city, they agreed. The city is opening itself to potential lawsuits, which we as taxpayers, we get to pay for. I'll go ahead and end my comments. I know I'm up. I'll leave you with this. I previously mentioned hindering the housing supply causes housing prices to go up. It's not only true for home sales, but rental rates as well. All the speakers tonight previously were in agreement of that, regardless of if they agree that Roswell has a duty to alleviate those housing prices or add supply. Limited supply causes housing prices to rise. That's true about buying or renting. Due to the speculative nature about real estate, a building moratorium, even for 90 days, will cause construction prices to increase by the day. It leads building delays for years, and that said, landlords on existing realtor properties stand to benefit financially from a building moratorium, given that they're cutting off the supply, and therefore they're increasing their profits at a faster rate. So regardless of if the home is single family or multifamily, limiting housing of any type will impact prices across the board. That said, according to Section 3.130 of the City Charter, voting when personally
Thank you,
interested.
Ms. Beeson. Thank you. Come on. I think you've been very generous with the time.
Yes, but also you had 3 other people who went over their time as well, and no one else was cut off.
Yes, actually, all three speakers, I gave a 5 sign to and a 5 sign to, and they are relented. You actually have gone past those other speakers. So actually, you got more time than the other 3 speakers went over their time. So it's not, it's just the opposite. I gave you more time.
So that's not equitable, though, because you already gave 4 prior speakers extra time, and you're cutting me off right now.
I don't even understand your logic. Individual speakers that went over 5 minutes, I flashed them 5. 2 of those speakers I had to flash 5 again. 1 went past the second 5 a little bit. I gave you 5, you acknowledged it, and then you just ran on. And I said, politely, because you went longer than the second speaker who went a second 5. So you went longer than any other speaker. So I don't understand. So you just made, wait a minute, you just made a statement of inequitability. How can you make, if you're going to make an accusation, right, then I have the opportunity to respond to it. And and you just made an accusation that I was unfair to you in terms of you being allowed to speak and versus the other people that had gone over their time. I was simply trying to illustrate how that was not the case. And you said, no, I don't understand. All 4 of them, I'm 1 against 4. And I'm saying, I don't understand that logic. All the other speakers went over 5 minutes. I flashed 5. Some of them stopped. 2 speakers I flashed 5 twice. The second one went a little bit over the 5. I flashed 5. You said you acknowledged it, and then you went on and never looked up. So I didn't have a chance to flash 5, and you went well past the time. And this is a ridiculous conversation to be having because somehow you're making an accusation going over 5 minutes. You're being treated inequitably, and I don't understand that. Sarah, you come speak welcomely all the time on any subject you want to, more than anybody. You know the rules. It's 5 minutes.
I'm just confused as to why this rule only applies to when I disagree with counsel. However, those who are friendly with your points were allowed to go over or were not cut off.
Again, that I would challenge your accusation. I just